My name is Daniel Carter, and for most of my life, I was invisible in my own family, not ignored in a loud way. Not shouted at or thrown out. No, it was quieter than that. The kind of silence that slowly erases you. The kind where people forget to say your name, even when you're sitting right in front of them. I remember the exact day I realized I didn't matter. It wasn't during a fight. It wasn't some dramatic moment. It was at dinner. My younger brother Ryan had just been accepted into one of the best universities in the country. My father stood up, raised his glass, and smiled, the kind of proud smile I had spent my entire childhood chasing. To Ryan, he said, his voice full, confident, certain, the future of this family. Everyone clapped. My mother's eyes were shining with pride. Ryan laughed, a little embarrassed, but happy. He deserved it. He always did. Then my father looked at me. Not with anger, not even with disappointment, just nothing. And Daniel, he added after a pause, like he almost forgot I existed, you need to figure your life out. The room went quiet. No one said anything, not my mother, not my brother, no one defended me. And then came the sentence that changed everything. Because we're not funding failure. I remember forcing a small smile like it didn't matter. Like I hadn't just been reduced to a problem sitting at the dinner table. I even nodded. Yeah. I know I said, but inside, something shut down. Not broke, not shattered, just turned off. That was the moment I stopped expecting anything from them. No support, no love, no future. Especially not an inheritance, because my father made that very clear that night. Everything we have will go to Ryan, he said calmly. He earned it. Earned it. That word stayed with me because I had been trying my whole life to earn something from them. A word, a look, anything. But nothing ever came. I wasn't stupid, at least. I don't think I was, but I had dyslexia, and in our house, that wasn't called a condition. It was called weakness. Letters moved when I read. Words twisted into shapes that didn't make sense. Teachers tried to help. Specialists explained it. It has nothing to do with intelligence. One of them told my parents, but my father didn't care about explanations. If he can't keep up, he said once, then he's not good enough. Simple dot, clean dot, final dot. Ryan didn't have that problem. Ryan read early, spoke confidently, got perfect grades without trying. He was everything my father believed a son should be, and I was everything he didn't want. So by the time I turned 19, I left no big goodbye, no emotional moment, just a bag, a few clothes, and a quiet exit from a house that had never really felt like mine. I didn't tell them where I was going. They didn't ask for the next few years. Life wasn't a story, it was survival. I worked anywhere that would take me construction sites, delivery jobs, night shifts at warehouses. I failed more times than I can count. Lost jobs, made mistakes, trusted the wrong people. But something strange happens when the people who are supposed to believe in you, don't you? Stop being afraid of failing because you've already been labeled as one. So I kept going, not to prove them wrong, but because stopping meant disappearing completely, and I wasn't ready to disappear. Not yet, by the time I was 27. I was working at a small logistics company. Nothing special, just moving boxes from one place to another. But something clicked. For the first time in my life, things made sense. Not words, not books, but movement, routes, timing, flow. I could look at a map and understand how things should move, where delays would happen, where time was being wasted. It was like seeing a puzzle, already solved within a year. I wasn't just working there. I was improving their system. Within 2 years, I was managing operations, and within 3, I left because I realized something. I didn't need permission to build something of my own. So, I started small. 1 truck, that's it. No investors, no family money, just savings. And a risk that could have destroyed me. The first year was brutal, long. Nights, no sleep, constant pressure. But it worked. Slowly, painfully, it worked. 1 truck became 2, 2 became 5. 5 became 15, and before I even realized it, I wasn't surviving anymore. I was building something real. A company by the time I turned 34. Daniel Carter, the failure, the disappointment, owned a logistics business generating millions in revenue. But here's the part no one knows. Not my parents, not my brother. None of them had any idea because they never asked, not once, not in years. They didn't know where I lived, what I did, or who I had become. And honestly, I didn't care because I didn't build it for them. I built it without them, and I was fine with that until the day my phone rang. It was a normal morning, nothing special. I standing behind the counter of a small grocery store I still helped out at sometimes, just to keep myself grounded. The phone buzzed in my pocket. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. Hello, is this Daniel Carter? Yeah, this is Mr. Whitmore. I'm calling regarding your grandmother's estate. I froze. My grandmother had passed away 3 weeks earlier, and no one told me. I found out through a distant relative. I wasn't invited to the funeral, didn't even get a call. So why was a lawyer calling me now? I think you have the wrong number, I said slowly. I don't, he replied calmly. You were specifically named. My heart started beating faster. That's not possible. It is, he said, and I need you to come in. I leaned against the counter. What is this about? There was a pause. Then he said the words. That changed everything. You've inherited something. I let out a small laugh. Yeah, I don't think so. Another pause. Daniel, he said, his tone more serious now. This is not a joke. My throat went dry. How much silence? And then $2.5 million. Everything around me disappeared. The noise, the store, the world, just gone, and a property. He added, I couldn't speak. I couldn't think, because for the first time in my life, someone had chosen me, and it wasn't a small choice. It was everything. But what hit even harder than the money was what he said next. Your parents are not included in the will. That's when I realized something. This wasn't luck. This wasn't random. This was intentional, and whatever truth my family had hidden from me all these years was about to come out. My hands were still shaking when I hung up the phone. For a long moment, I just stood there, staring at nothing. $2.5 million. The number didn't feel real. It didn't fit into the life I had been living. People like me didn't get calls like that. People like me got ignored. Overlooked, forgotten, but not chosen. Never chosen. I walked out of the store without saying a word to anyone. I don't even remember grabbing my keys. I just knew I needed airspace, something, to ground me before my mind completely spiraled. Because if this was real, if even half of what that lawyer said was true, then everything I thought I knew about my family was wrong. And the one person who might have explained it, my grandmother, was gone. I hadn't seen her in almost 6 years. Not because I didn't want to, but because every time I tried, something got in the way. My mother would say she wasn't feeling well. My father would say she was resting. Ryan would shrug and say, maybe another time. And eventually, I stopped asking. It's strange how easy it is to be removed from someone's life when other people control the doors. But now she had left me everything. Not them, me. I got into my car and just sat there, gripping the steering wheel. There was only one question repeating in my head. Why? Why me, out of everyone? Why me? I didn't have the answer, but I had a feeling. It was inside that letter. The lawyer's office was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes every small sound feel louder than it should. The ticking clock. On the wall, the soft shuffle of papers. The low hum of air conditioning. I sat across from a man in his 60s. Clean suit, calm eyes. The kind of person who deals with life-changing information like it's just another Tuesday. Mr. Carter, he said, folding his hands neatly. Thank you for coming. I nodded, trying to keep my voice steady. I need you to explain this. To me, he gave a small, understanding smile. I imagine you do. He reached into a folder and pulled out a document. This is your grandmother's will. It was updated 2 years ago. 2 years. That meant this wasn't some last-minute decision. She had planned this talk carefully, intentionally. You are listed as the sole beneficiary of her liquid assets. He continued, $2.5 million. My chest tightened. And the house, a property just outside the city. It's fully paid, no debts attached. I let out a slow breath, and my parents. He paused, then looked directly at me. They were intentionally excluded. The way he said it, there was no room for misunderstanding. Not forgotten, not overlooked, excluded. On purpose, I swallowed. They're going to lose their minds. He didn't react. I'm sure this will be unexpected for them. Unexpected. That was one way to put it. Then he reached for something else. A sealed envelope, yellowed slightly at the edges, like it had been sitting, waiting. This, he said, placing it gently in front of me, was left specifically for you. My eyes locked onto it. My name was written on the front, not printed, handwritten. I recognized it instantly. My grandmother's handwriting, careful, slightly shaky, but still strong. Take your time, the lawyer said quietly, but I didn't want time. I needed answers. I picked up the envelope slowly, like it might disappear if I moved too fast. My fingers hesitated for just a second before opening it, because deep down, I knew this letter was going to change everything. I unfolded the paper and I started reading. Daniel, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and I'm sorry. Not just for leaving, but for the years we lost. There are things you were never told. Things I should have fought harder to tell you. Your parents didn't just distance you from me. They made sure I stayed away from you. My breath caught. I kept reading. They told me you didn't want to see me, that you were too busy, that you had moved on. And for a while, I believed them, until I found out the truth. My hands tightened around the paper. Truth? What truth? They didn't want you near me because they were afraid. Afraid that I would give you something they didn't. Want you to have, not money, but the truth about your grandfather's estate. My heart started pounding. This wasn't just about her. Money, Dot. This went deeper, much deeper. Daniel, your grandfather left you a trust when you were a child. The words hit me like a punch. A trust. What they never told you. They took control of it, managed it themselves. And over the years, that money disappeared. I stopped breathing. No, Dot, no. That wasn't possible. They told me it was being used for the family. But I knew better. I asked questions. I pushed. And that's when they started keeping me away from you. My vision blurred slightly. They didn't want you to know that something was already yours. Something they had taken. Taken? Not used. Not managed. Taken. Dot managed. Taken. Dot double quotes. They thought if you stayed the failure, you would never question anything. Never look deeper. Never fight back. My chest felt tight. Every word felt heavier than the last. I tried to fix it. I tried. To protect what I could. But I was too late to stop them. So I made a decision. Everything I still had. I left to you. A tear slipped down before I even realized it. I'm sorry, Daniel, for not reaching you sooner, for not fighting harder, but I see you, even if they never did, and I know. You will do something with this, not just for yourself, but for the truth they tried to bury. The letter ended there, Dot. No dramatic closing, Dot. No long goodbye. Just silence. I sat there, completely still. The room felt smaller, heavier, because everything made sense now. The distance, the coldness, the way I was pushed out, slowly, quietly. It wasn't just disappointment, it was strategy. They needed me to stay small, because if I ever realized what had been taken from me, everything would fall apart. And now I knew. I folded the letter carefully, my hands steadier than I expected. The lawyer was watching me, quietly. Is everything all right? He asked. I looked up at him, and for the first time, I felt something different. Not confusion, not hurt. Something sharper, clearer. Double quotes. No, I said calmly. It's not. I stood up slowly. What are my options? He tilted his head slightly. In what sense? In legal terms. He studied me for a moment, and I could tell he understood exactly what I was asking. You may have grounds, he said carefully, if what's written there is accurate. And if records support it, they will, I said. Because deep down, I already knew. This wasn't a guess. This was the truth. Buried for years, and if I decide to pursue it, I asked, his expression didn't change. Then this becomes more than an inheritance matter. A small pause, it becomes a case. I nodded slowly. Good, because that's exactly what I wanted. Not just the money, not just closure, but accountability. They had spent years making sure I stayed invisible, making sure I never asked questions. Never. Pushed back never mattered. But that version of me, the one who stayed quiet, was gone. I picked up the envelope and slid it into my jacket. "Thank you," I said. And I meant it, because this wasn't just about what I gained. It was about what I finally understood. I walked out of that office, a different person, not richer, not yet, but aware and awareness. That's where everything begins, because now I had a choice. I could take the money, walk away, and finally live a life without them. Or I could go back, face them, and expose everything they had tried to hide. And as I stood outside, feeling the weight of that letter in my pocket, I already knew the answer. They had taken something from me years ago, something that was never theirs, and now I was going to take it back. I didn't go home after leaving the lawyer's office. Home didn't feel like the right place anymore because something inside me had shifted. For years, I had been moving forward, building quietly, staying out of their world. But now the world had come back into mine, and it wasn't asking for permission. It was demanding a response. I sat in my car for a long time, staring at my phone. My father's number was still saved. I never deleted it. Funny how even after everything, you still leave a door slightly open. I tapped the screen, hovered over his name, then locked the phone again. No, not like this. This wasn't a phone call, conversation. This was something that needed to be seen, felt, faced. So I drove straight to the one place I hadn't stepped into in years. My parents' house, the same house where I had learned what silence felt like, the same house where I stopped being their son. Nothing had changed. The driveway was still perfectly clean. The garden trimmed like it was part of a magazine cover. Every detail controlled, polished, perfect, just like them. I parked across the street for a moment, watching, thinking. Not nervous, not scared, just ready. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the front door. Each step felt heavier, but clearer, like I wasn't walking into their world anymore. I was walking in with my own. I knocked once, then waited a few seconds later. The door opened. My mother stood there for a moment. She didn't recognize me. I saw it in her eyes. That brief hesitation, then Daniel, her voice was soft, surprised, not warm, not cold, just unsure. "Hi, Mom." There was an awkward silence. She looked at me like she didn't know what to do next, like I was something unexpected, something out of place. "What are you doing here?" she asked. Simple question, but it said everything. Not, "I'm glad you're here," not, "How have you been?" Just, "What are you doing here?" "I need to talk to Dad," I said calmly. Her expression shifted slightly. Concern, confusion, maybe even a little fear. "He's inside," she said, stepping aside slowly. I walked in. The house smelled the same, clean, expensive, untouched, like time had paused here, while everything outside kept moving. Voices came from the living room. My father and Ryan. I stepped closer. "It's a solid investment," Ryan was saying. "If we expand now, we control the market in 5 years. My father nodded. "That's exactly how you think long term." Then he saw me, and everything stopped. The conversation, the movement. Room itself. Daniel. My name. He said it like it was unfamiliar, like it didn't belong there. Ryan turned around. His face changed instantly. Shock first, then confusion. "Daniel." "What are you? I need to talk to you," I said, cutting through the moment. Not loud, not aggressive, just direct. My father straightened slightly. Something in his posture shifted. The control came back. About what? I reached into my jacket, pulled out the envelope, and placed it on the table in front of him. That he looked down at it, then back at me. "What is this?" "A letter," I said. "From Grandma." My mother froze in the doorway behind me. Ryan glanced between us. "What's going on?" My father didn't answer him. His eyes stayed on me. "She passed away," he said flatly. "We handled everything." "I know," I replied. "And yet, somehow, you missed this." I tapped the envelope lightly. He didn't move, didn't touch it, didn't open it. "Daniel," he said, voice tightening slightly, "if you came here to cause drama, $2.5 million, the words cut straight through him. Silence, real silence, the kind that presses into your ears. Ryan blinked. "What?" My mother's hand moved to her mouth. My father didn't react immediately, but I saw it, that tiny flicker in his eyes. Recognition, not surprise. Recognition. "You heard me," I said calmly. "She left me everything." Ryan let out a small, confused laugh. That's not possible. It is. I didn't take my eyes off my father, because this wasn't about convincing Ryan. This was about him. Liquid assets, property, everything, I continued. And you got nothing. My mother stepped forward slightly. That doesn't make any sense. It does, I said. If you read the letter, I pushed the envelope closer. My father finally moved, slowly. He picked it up, looked at the handwriting for the first time. His expression cracked just a little. He opened it. The room stayed silent as he read line by line. His face didn't change much, but his eyes did. They hardened then, shifted, then tightened. Ryan looked at him. Dad, what is it? No answer. My father finished the letter, folded it carefully, placed it back on the table, then looked at me, and now there was no pretending, no control, just something raw underneath. Where did you get this? From the lawyer, I said. He also mentioned something interesting. A pause. I let it sit for a second. Then the trust. Ryan frowned. What trust? My father's jaw tightened. There is no trust. I smiled slightly, not because it was funny, but because it was predictable. There was, I said. Grandpa left it to me. Ryan looked confused. Wait, what? My mother shook her head quickly. That's not true. It is, I said, still calm. And according to the letter, it was managed by you. I looked directly at my father until it wasn't there anymore. Silence. No one moved, no one spoke. Because this was the moment where truth meets denial. Daniel, my father said slowly, choosing each word carefully, you don't understand how these things work. I understand enough, I replied. Enough to know something was taken from me. Ryan looked between us again. Dad, what is he talking about? Still no answer. That told him everything. You never told me about this, Ryan said quietly. It was handled, my father snapped. Handled, I repeated. That's one word for it. My mother stepped forward. Daniel, please. This isn't the way to what? I cut in, asked questions, or finally stopped pretending. Everything is fine. Her eyes filled slightly. Don't do this. Do what? I said. Say it out loud, because that's what this was. Not anger, not revenge. Truth, simple, uncomfortable, unavoidable truth. You kept me in the dark my entire life, I continued. You made sure I stayed the failure. The one who wouldn't question anything. That's not true, she whispered. It is, I said. And the worst part, I looked at Ryan. You didn't even need to lie to him. He just never asked. Ryan looked down because he knew. He knew that part was true. Years, and not once, had he asked what I was doing with my life. Not once. I came here for one reason, I said, turning back to my father. His eyes locked onto mine. What reason? I held his gaze. Because now I know. A small pause, and what you do next matters. The room felt heavy again, but different this time. Not silence, pressure, because this wasn't over. Not even close. This was just the moment everything started to break, and I could see it in the way my father stood, in the way my mother couldn't meet my eyes, not in the way Ryan was trying to process a reality that didn't fit his version of the world for the first time. They weren't in control, and they knew it. I stepped back slightly. I'll give you time, I said, to think about what you want to do. My father's voice came sharp. Do? About what? I looked at him one last time, about the truth, and then I turned and walked out. No shouting, no drama, no explosion, because the real damage had already been done. And as I stepped outside into the quiet street, I knew something with absolute certainty. This wasn't just a confrontation. This was the beginning of a reckoning. I didn't feel powerful when I walked away from that house. I felt clear. For the first time in my life, I wasn't guessing anymore. I wasn't trying to read between silences or interpret cold looks. I knew, and knowing changes everything. That night, I didn't celebrate, didn't call anyone, didn't even turn on the TV. I sat in my apartment with the letter on the table in front of me, reading it again. Slower this time. Every word felt heavier than before. Not because of the money, but because of what it confirmed. This wasn't neglect. It wasn't misunderstanding. It was a decision. They had chosen a version of reality where I stayed small, stayed behind, stayed quiet, and they had protected that version for years. But now that version was gone. And the truth doesn't disappear once it's seen. The next morning, I made a call. "Mr. Whitmore, it's Daniel. Good morning," he replied calmly. "I had a feeling I'd be hearing from you. I want to move forward." A brief pause. "In what way?" "In every way." Silence. Then understood. That single word felt like the start of something bigger, because this wasn't just about recovering money anymore. This was about exposing something that had been buried for decades. "We'll need documentation," he continued. "Records, financial movement, anything tied to the trust." They handled everything. I said, "I didn't even know it existed." "That may actually work in your favor," he replied. "If control was exercised without your informed consent." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "Then it becomes serious," I said. "Yes, very serious." I ended the call and leaned back in my chair. This was it. No more waiting, no more silence. If they had taken something that was mine, I was going to get it back. But more than that, I was going to make sure they couldn't pretend it never happened. 3 days passed. No calls, no messages, nothing from them, not even Ryan, which told me something important. They weren't ignoring this. They were scrambling, trying to figure out what to do, trying to control something that was already slipping on the 4th day. My phone rang. My father. I stared at the screen for a second, then answered. "Daniel." His voice was controlled, careful, measured, double quotes. "Dad." Short silence. "We need to talk." "We already did," I said. "Not like this," he replied. "In person." I leaned back slightly. "No." Another pause. "I'm not coming back to that house." His tone tightened just a bit. "Daniel, this is a family matter." I almost laughed. "Is it?" Silence, because we both knew the truth. It hadn't been a family matter when they made decisions without me, when they kept things from me, when they erased me. "I'll meet you somewhere neutral," I said. A longer pause this time, then fine. We agreed on a quiet office space downtown. No audience, no home advantage, just two people, or at least that's what it looked like. He was already there when I arrived, sitting at the table, straight posture, hands folded, exactly the way he used to sit at business meetings, like this was just another negotiation. I walked in slowly and took the seat. Across from him, for a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he finally did. "You've made your point." I tilted my head slightly. "Have I?" "Yes," he said. "There was a mistake." A mistake. That word again. Always the softer version, the cleaner version. "The trust was handled improperly," he continued. "Decisions were made. Under pressure." "Pressure," I repeated. "Financial situations, timing, responsibilities." I watched him carefully, because this was important, not what he said, but what he didn't. No apology, no accountability, just explanation. "I see," I said, and the part where no one told me it existed. He didn't answer immediately. That was an oversight. I leaned forward slightly. "No," I said calmly, "it wasn't." That landed. I saw it, because for the first time, I wasn't playing along. "That was a decision," I continued, "a deliberate one." His jaw tightened. "You're making this bigger than it is." I held his gaze. "No," I said quietly. "I'm seeing it clearly for the first time." Silence. Shifted slightly in his chair. "This doesn't need to go further," he said. There it was. The real reason for this meeting? Containment. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means we can resolve this privately." I almost smiled. "Resolve?" "Yes." Another pause. "Then we're prepared to offer you compensation." There it was. The business language. The same tone he used with clients, with partners. "Now, with me, how much?" I asked. His eyes narrowed slightly. "Enough to settle this. Give me a number." A beat. Then 500,000. I didn't react, didn't move, didn't even blink, because in that moment, everything became very simple. Not emotional, not complicated. Simple. 500,000. That was the number he believed I was worth, not as a son, as a problem he wanted. Gone quietly, quickly, controlled. I leaned back in my chair. "That's it?" I asked calmly. His expression hardened. "It's a generous offer." I let out a slow breath. "You took something that wasn't yours," I said, "and you think 500,000 fixes that. You don't understand the full situation. Understand enough I cut him off again, and this time, he didn't like it. "This isn't just about money," I continued. "It never was." He looked at me, studying, trying to figure out where this was going. "What do you want?" he asked. There it was, the question he should have asked years ago, but now it meant something different. Now it wasn't curiosity, it was calculation. I held his gaze. "I want the truth acknowledged." He frowned slightly. "What does that mean?" "It means you stop calling it a mistake." Silence. "It means you admit what you did." His face tightened. "That's not how this works." I nodded slowly. "You're right." A pause. "Because this isn't your boardroom." That hit harder than anything I'd said so far. Because for the first time, he wasn't in control of the narrative. "I'm not negotiating a discount," I continued. "I'm addressing what happened, and if we don't agree," he asked, his tone sharper now, more familiar. This was the version of him I grew up with, the one who pushed, controlled, directed. Directed, I met his eyes. "Then we don't keep this private." Silence, heavy, uncomfortable, real. He leaned back slightly, studying me again, but this time there was something new in his expression. Not authority, not confidence, uncertainty, because he was realizing something. The person sitting across from him wasn't the same one who left that house years ago. I wasn't asking anymore. I wasn't waiting. I wasn't hoping. I was deciding. "You'd take this to court?" he asked quietly. "Yes." No hesitation, no emotion, just truth. Another long pause. He looked away for a moment, then back at me. "This will affect everyone." I nodded. "I know your mother, your brother." "They were part of the silence," I said. That stopped him because, again, it was true. I'm not trying to destroy anything, I added, but I'm not protecting it anymore either. The room went quiet again, but this time it wasn't empty. It was full of something else. Shift power. For the first time in my life, I wasn't sitting across from my father as someone seeking approval. I was sitting there as someone he couldn't control, and he knew it. We sat there for a few more seconds. Then I stood up. "This isn't over," I said. He didn't respond, didn't argue, didn't stop me, because there was nothing left to say. Not here, not like this. As I walked toward the door, I heard his voice behind me. "Daniel." I stopped, but didn't turn around. A pause, longer. "This time, then, we'll be in touch." I nodded slightly and walked out. No anger, no satisfaction, just certainty, because now the lines were clear. This wasn't a family issue anymore. This was accountability, and whether he was ready or not, it was coming. The next few weeks didn't explode the way people imagine these moments do. There was no shouting, no dramatic scenes, just pressure, quiet, constant pressure building beneath everything. My days didn't change much on the surface. I still woke up early, still went to work, still walked the same floors, checked the same systems, talked to the same people, but inside, everything had shifted. Because now there was something moving in the background. Documents being pulled, records being reviewed, numbers being traced back through years of decisions that were never meant to be questioned. And the more we looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't poor management. This was control, deliberate control. The trust my grandfather had left me hadn't just disappeared. It had been redirected, used, folded into other accounts, other investments, other decisions that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with maintaining the life they wanted. My life traded quietly for theirs. When Mr. Whitmore called again, his voice was different. Most certain, "We have enough," he said. I stood by the window in my office, looking out at the trucks moving in and out like clockwork. "How bad is it?" I asked. A pause. "Then it's clear." That was all I needed to hear, because clear meant one thing. There was no way to hide this anymore. The notice was sent 2 days later. Formal, direct, unavoidable. Father received it at his office. Ryan saw it within hours. And my mother, she called me that same evening. I didn't answer the first time, or the second, but the third time I picked up. "Daniel." Her voice was shaking. Not loud, not dramatic, just fragile, Mom. A long silence followed. "I didn't know it would go this far," she said. I leaned back in my chair. "It already went this far," I replied quietly. "Years ago." She didn't respond right away because she knew. She had always known. "We never meant to hurt you," she said softly. That sentence. I had heard versions of it my whole life. Different words, same meaning. I closed my eyes for a second. Intent doesn't change what happened. Her breathing caught slightly. "I should have said something," she whispered. "Yes," I said. "You should have silence again. Heavier this time." "I was afraid," she admitted. "Of what?" "Of breaking the family." I let that sit for a moment. Then I said something she wasn't expecting. The family was already broken. Another pause, and I was the only one living outside of it. I could hear her crying now, quietly, not asking for forgiveness, not trying to fix it, just feeling it. "I don't know how to fix this," she said. I looked out the window again. At the movement, at the order, at something I had built without any of them. "You don't fix it all at once," I said. "You start by telling the truth." The line went quiet. "Then, I'm sorry, Daniel. Not perfect, not enough, but real, for everything," she added. I didn't respond immediately, because forgiveness isn't instant. It doesn't come from words. It comes from time, from consistency, from change. "I hear you," I said. Finally, and for now, that was enough. My father never called. Not once, but I knew he was watching. Watching the case move forward, watching the pressure build, watching something he had controlled for decades slip out of his hands. Ryan came to see me a week later. No suit this time, no polished confidence, just Ryan, my brother. He stood in my office doorway, looking slightly out of place. "Hey," he said. "Hey." A short silence. "I didn't know," he said. "I believe you." He nodded slowly. "But I should have asked," he added. That part mattered." "Yeah," I said. "You should have." He looked down for a second, then back at me. "Is there anything I can do?" I thought about that. Really thought about it? Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It wasn't about hurting them. It was about truth. "Be honest," I said. "With yourself first," he nodded. "I can do that." Another pause. Then he glanced around. At the office. At everything. "You built all this?" "Yeah." He let out a small breath. "It's impressive." I smiled slightly. "It's work." He laughed quietly. "Yeah, it is." For the first time in years, it didn't feel like we were standing on opposite sides of something. Just two people, trying to understand what had been broken between them. "I'd like to be part of your life," he said. "Not the old version, the real one." I looked at him for a moment, then nodded, one step at a time. "That's fair." And just like that, something small started to rebuild. Not everything, not yet, but something real. The case didn't drag on for years. It didn't need to, because when the truth is documented, clear, undeniable, there's only so much you can fight. Eventually, my father made a decision. Not a public one, not a dramatic one, a quiet one. Settlement. Full restoration of what remained of the trust. Financial compensation beyond that, and something I didn't expect. A written acknowledgement. Not emotional, not personal, but direct, clear, accurate. He admitted what had been done. On paper, signed, final. When I read it, I didn't feel victory. I didn't feel satisfaction. I felt closure. Because this was never about winning. It was about being seen, being acknowledged, being real. In a story where I had been erased, months passed, life moved forward. My company grew, new contracts, new routes, new challenges. The work never stopped. And honestly, that's exactly how I liked it. My relationship with my mother improved slowly, carefully, conversation by conversation. No pretending, no shortcuts, just truth. Ryan stayed in my life. Showed up, asked questions, listened, really listened. And my father, he stayed distant, not gone, but changed, quieter, more careful, like a man who finally understood something he should have seen years ago. We spoke once, briefly. No big moment, no emotional apology, just a simple sentence. I was wrong. It wasn't everything, but it was something. And sometimes, something is enough to begin. One morning, I stood on the loading dock watching the trucks move out one by one. Same place where everything started, same early hour, same cold air. But I wasn't the same person anymore, not the kid who sat quietly in the background, not the one waiting to be noticed, not the one trying to earn a place. I had built my own, brick by brick, decision by decision, without permission, without approval, without them. And now, I stood there not as someone who had something to prove, but as someone who already knew his worth. My name is Daniel Carter. I was the son they overlooked, the one they labeled, the one they underestimated. But here's the truth. The back row, that's just where they put you. It's not where you belong. And the thing they call your weakness, that might be the very thing that builds your strength. So if you've ever been the one left out, the one ignored, the one they didn't believe in, remember this. You don't need them to see you. You just need to see yourself. And once you do, you won't ask for a seat at their table. You'll build your own, and trust me, it will be stronger than anything they ever imagined.